You might actually be the most derivative one of all. I mean, Christ, the same house.
Maybe so. But you forgot the first rule of surviving a stab movie. Never answer the...
I'm bored.
Wait!
And welcome back to Horror Queers. It's our whenever we feel like doing it micro queers. And I'm Joe.
And I'm Trace. And we are now returning to our micro queers where we just discuss a new queer film that we are not discussing on the Patreon because we want to promote queer horror.
Indeed, yeah. And this is a new release that's now available on Hulu. And it's the kind of film that I'm not sure we would dedicate an entire episode to, so a micro queers format feels particularly apt.
Yeah, absolutely. And the film in question is Kelly Callie's Jagged Mind, starring Maisie Richardson-Sellers, a favorite of mine from her time on Legends of Tomorrow.
Okay.
And Shannon Woodward, also a favorite of mine. I don't know if you ever watched this show back in the day because this was a writer's strike of 2007 victim, Joe, but
okay.
It was the FX show The Riches with Eddie Izzard and Minnie Driver.
Oh, I know about it, but never really got around to watching it. This and Dirt were like two shows that I really wanted to kind of get my head into, and it just never really happened.
So, okay.
Detour tangent. Here we go.
Tangent really quick, but I just want to say, yes. So that period of time was like, it was like the post Nip Tuck and The Shield where FX was really being edgy.
Right.
Dirt is not a good show, but I would argue that it's still really fun to watch because it's so fucking trashy.
Yes.
The Riches is genuinely good, but Shannon Woodward played the daughter in this show. This is about a family of I don't want to say
grifters, right?
Grifters. There we go. Okay, I was about to use a bad G word.
I think it's Romany, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah, I don't think that's actually what they are. Nevertheless, they accidentally kill a really rich white family with the last name Rich and take over their lives. They steal their identities and take their lives over, and that's the whole show. But
okay.
Shannon Woodward is also Katy Perry's best friend.
Oh, interesting. Okay. The more you know. Well, that's not exactly what we're talking about today. So we are talking about Jagged Mind. And this is an interesting one, Trace. So this was on our radar because I mentioned this when we were talking about our most anticipated films for our YouTube series. Mm-hmm. And I said, at the time there was no trailer. We barely had a log line, but it's essentially about a girl who finds herself caught in this kind of web where she doesn't really know what's real anymore. And she thinks it's associated with her new girlfriend. And that seemed tantalizing and interesting, but we were both a little worried that it was going to be the usual, oh, is she crazy or not? And I feel like one of the reasons I wanted to have a conversation with you about this is because it's immediately clear that it's not. Like, it's revealed very early on, oh, yeah, no, the girlfriend is doing this to her.
Yeah, this is 100% a time loop movie. And that is not, I would argue that's not a spoiler to even say that, but because it's made pretty obvious that is what's happening. It just takes a little while to realize, oh, no, new girlfriend is 100% the villain of this film.
Yeah, I think it's one of the smartest things that screenwriter Allyson Morgan does with the film, because this would have been very easy to have drawn it out. Oh, she's having hallucinations. Is it the girlfriend? Is it mental illness? Is it something else? And instead, the movie makes it clear by the end of the first act, maybe even earlier than that, not only is something really weird going on, but we're pretty sure it's the girlfriend. And then it becomes a question of why and how.
Yes. And so that is the aspect I appreciate the most. However, I will say that where this film loses me is that I do feel like it gets really repetitive.
Right.
Because we know this stuff so early. And so again, I'm of two minds. I like that the film doesn't like yank us around by the dick, waiting for us to figure this out. It's like, no, this is what we're doing. We're not doing what you think we're doing.
Right.
But the problem is then, for those next two acts, I'm kind of like, oh, it's just kind of the same thing over and over, which I get. That's kind of the hazard of the time loop narrative. Mm-hmm. But it didn't really hold my attention all the way through to the end.
Right. I can definitely see that. I also found my attention wandering a little bit. Where I ended up getting reinvested in the film is as we move into the last act, there's a kind of ominous statement of, okay, here's how you can break this chain, right? You need to get this crystal that's on her locket, and you need to perform this kind of ceremonial chant. And if you do that, you should be able to move us back to before any of this happened. So in a way, it's a bit of this is all a dream narrative. But then this one character, Rose Porter, says, but if you can do that, then you need to give me the crystal because you will not be able to handle its power. And I was like, oh, so this is going to become will she actually give it back when she is inevitably successful? And if not, what are the consequences?
Well, and unfortunately, she can't even give it back to Rose because Rose is dead. Oh, actually, I guess... Oh,
well, no, she resets it, so Rose is alive at the end.
Yes, everything is undone. I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm.
Everything is undone by the end of this film.
Indeed.
Yeah, I mean, what do you think about these two lead performances, though, right? Maisie Richardson-Sellers and Shannon Woodward.
Okay, so our main character is Billy. She works in an art gallery. She has a difficult relationship with her boss, Christine, who she has a tendency to fuck, but it's a toxic thing.
She has a tendency to fuck. Of course, there's an enormous backstory with this where we learn eventually that this is the woman that Billy cheated on Alex,
yes.
Shannon Woodward's character, with in a previous timeline?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'll say timeline. It's fine.
Basically, Billy can't control herself around Christine. And I think there's an uncomfortableness to this, too, because I get the impression that Christine is actually her boss at the gallery. Mm-hmm. So you're just like, oh, no, this is a boss-employee relationship. It should not be happening. So we know that Christine is bad news, but I like Billy as a heroine because she's a little bit messy. She's trying to figure her shit out. She's not lucky in love, and then all of a sudden she meets this white girl, and the white girl is very interested in her, and they have like good chemistry, and the sex seems pretty good. So, I like that it's a little bit of a white devil narrative where you're just like, Billy, you should not be dating this perfect partner in Alex. But also, I do like that Billy herself isn't perfect either.
Yeah, but also Alex really unravels as this movie goes on.
Ooh,
like, it's
boy, she is fucking wild.
Her mood swings are just like, oh my god. Although I will say, I did the one part when the kid falls over and won't stop crying. I love that we get not one but two flashbacks to this kid falling near her and her cussing this kid out.
Oh, indeed. Yeah. Alex basically has no patience for anybody. And maybe it's because by this point, I mean, she could have done this 20, 50, 70 times. Like, we really don't know how many times Alex has reset the timeline. Although, as you mentioned, we get sort of flashes or glimpses of it as the film progresses. But Alex very clearly hates Billy's friend, Kim, who is played by Kate Sekeli. And she has this child who is, it's a little boy, right? He's going to make messes. He's a bit of a brat, but in the ways that kids are. But I love that, the minute this kid gets his dirty hands on Alex's dress, she is cussing this fucking child out.
But you're right, though. We don't exactly know how many times Alex has done this to Billy, but we do learn that, because she uses this power at every minute issue.
Oh my god, every fucking time. This woman needs to go to counseling, like couples counseling, and say, how do we work out our problems rather than reset the timeline?
But it's not just that, because she's also clearly made it all the way to the proposal stage
so many
times before, and then had to reset it all the way back to the beginning. And it's this sounds really like a lot of work for one girl.
Indeed. Yeah, if anything, I kind of wish that we could spend a bit more time in the climax of this film when Alex knows that Billy knows and all the cards are on the table. Because, we just get the suggestion that this has happened at least a couple of times because she's, clearly killed her in the pool because that's one of the hallucination flashbacks that Billy is having. But I wish that she would talk about, why are you putting in all of this effort? Alex has tried this before with Rose, the woman who tries to warn Billy and who is ultimately killed by Alex in about the middle stretch of the film. Mm-hmm. But it's I never fully understand why Alex becomes so psychotically attached to a particular person. What is it about Billy that she is so desperate to make it work, as opposed to just saying, I don't need to keep doing this. I should find someone else.
Yeah, I agree. And that's kind of where the film falls short for me. Alex very much is kind of a one-dimensional character.
Right. She's just the villain.
Yeah, if I'm being generous, two-dimensional. But and that's where a lot of this to me feels like what almost might be a really good 30-minute episode of Tales from the Crypt.
Okay.
But we have this, what's essentially a 77-minute movie, and I don't really think it utilizes all of it. I needed this to be about 15 minutes longer to flesh out some of Alex's motives, as opposed to just making her the obsessed lesbian character,
Right.
or make it a short film of sorts.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, or even take out some of that repetition and have those missing 15 minutes where we actually get to spend a bit more time with the characters, because the opening of the film makes it pretty clear that we are resetting the timeline. Like, it's important to introduce this as a narrative conceit because that's what the whole film is kind of built on. And I think it works initially to grab our attention as an audience, but it also means that we never really get a sense of what Alex and Billy's normal relationship is like. I mean, Alex is gaslighting her the entire fucking time, and we know this, but we never get to see the kind of non-psycho parts of their relationship, so we don't understand why they like each other.
I'm curious too, did you find this to be a plot contrivance? Because the reveal that we get is that Alex was Rose's girlfriend.
Yes.
And Rose was using the power on her, and then after they break up, Alex stole the crystal and moved over to Billy. And it just seems a little irresponsible to move to someone so close to home.
Maybe. I mean, what's your range when you're looking for a partner? It's like, well, we got to stay in Miami because, I really love the beaches and I don't like to travel that much.
See, it just seemed like, oh, we need this in the script so that we can have someone explain to Billy what's going on.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, I was surprised to learn that it is Rose who kind of initiated this process. So Rose is played by Shannon Montpremier, and we learn, I'm hesitant to call this a kind of hoodoo Haitian sort of, there's that vibe there, but I'm not sure about the racial components. Like, it didn't feel icky, but I did want to know if this was grounded in something real.
I don't know enough about it to say if this is offensive or not. I mean, thankfully, we are telling a story with Black women and a story about Haitian magic. But yeah, honestly, that's another feeling too, though. Rose is also really not a character. She exists solely to provide exposition in this film.
Indeed, yeah. And I wonder if that would have been another opportunity to kind of flesh out some of the characters beyond just the plot machinations.
Exactly. And that's where that 77-minute runtime kind of is not a good thing for this film.
Yeah, it's a solid idea. It's just that in some of the ways the execution doesn't quite work. I think the two lead actresses make this watchable, I'm not inherently bored. But then when the movie ends, I was kind of like, it felt both long and short, and I'm left a little unsatisfied in some regards.
Yeah, I agree. To the point where with the ending, it's not really a gotcha ending, but it's like, okay, so she's going to be overtaken with the power again. So it's not exactly what I would call a happy ending.
No.
I was also a little confused, too, with the rules of the film, because Rose says, if you keep having this done to you, you will die.
Right. And at one point, Billy ends up in the hospital because the resetting of the timeline is really fucking up her brain.
Yes. My question is, though, it doesn't seem to affect the person casting the spell.
No.
Which doesn't really make a lot of sense to me, but whatever. It's magic rules.
Yeah, I guess it's because the magic is focused on resetting that person's timeline. Or maybe if you're wearing the crystal, it protects you from being mentally unmoored.
Yeah, maybe.
But the film doesn't make it clear.
Again, it's a little nitpick, but it's just something that I was kind of like, wait a minute.
Yeah. So one last thing before we sort of start to wrap this up. I did want to talk about what I think is one of the better parts of the film, which is the way that the hallucination / reveal that this is actually time being played with. I really liked just the way that it's captured. It's enough to make you think that it could be a dream sequence or a hallucination, but it has a kind of energy that helps to feel very jarring.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that. Like, just from a visual standpoint, I think it's all quite well done for what I'm assuming is a relatively low budget production.
Indeed, yeah, because I don't know that Hulu... Well, it's never clear to me if Hulu is buying these movies or commissioning them in that, it's sort of like the Netflix model, right? Are you buying it or did you ask for it to be made? But these are, I gather, films that are a little bit smaller, and then they're showcase opportunities for the writers and directors to make the jump into potentially some bigger name projects.
Are you ready for something that's going to blow your mind, because we clearly didn't do our research on this?
What's that?
This film is based on writer Allyson Morgan's short film First Date, which aired as part of season 1 of the Hulu series Bite Size Halloween, which is a collection of horror shorts.
Okay. I did know that they were using that as a kind of like a lab or a workshop model to, I was going to say groom future directors, but I guess foster development. There we go.
No, but it's interesting. So I would like to go back and now watch that short film to see how it plays, because I can almost guarantee you that this is probably going to be better as a short film.
Interesting. You know what? Challenge accepted, because that's the other part that we do with Microqueers is we're still interested in those queer horror shorts. So maybe if we can track this down, we can do a little compare and contrast in the future.
Yeah, I am totally down for that. But yeah, so I guess, that is going to wrap up our discussion on Jagged Mind. Any final thoughts on this, Joe?
I would say, this isn't a slam dunk. I was hoping that this would be a little more satisfying, but I didn't mind watching it. And I think, it's still June. If people are looking to cram some queer horror content into their lives, this is fine. And it's short, right? So you could watch this, get in and out. And I think the acting of these two main leads is what sells it. So all in all, I would gently recommend this.
Yeah, I would agree too. I think this movie is fine. But again, I'm always happy to have more queer horror that, we didn't mention this, but this is a queer horror film where the queerness isn't really like...
Oh, yeah.
The movie's not about queerness. Even though queerness is front and center, it's not about them being queer.
Absolutely. In some ways, you almost feel like you could switch the genders of these characters, and it could just as easily work with a man and a woman, or two men, or any combination of characters. And I will say, thank you for bringing this up as we close out. I'm really happy that is the case, because in some ways this is the queer representation I like to see. It just happens to be two women. It doesn't have anything Alex is not off her rocker because she is a lesbian. She just happens to be a lesbian who is off her rocker.
That's a great distinction. Yes, I'm in full agreement with that. But yeah, y'all check this out. Again, breezy 77 minutes. So you could do a lot worse.
There you go.
But all right. Well, I guess on that note, we can cross out Jagged Mind.
Indeed, and cross out Microqueers.
Atlas Avenue, a long stretch of road that encompasses everything the city of Kennett Heights has to offer. Neon lights, traffic, crime, the hustle and bustle of everyday life, and the craziest of characters. My office was above it all. My name is James Locke, and I'm a PI.
Hello, Mr. J. How the hell you doing today?
Good, Edith. Nearly every year I have a new case. New people to meet, new clues to discover, and new problems to solve. But I do it the old-fashioned way. No technology. Nothing post-1950. Hell, I don't even listen to podcasts, but you should. Atlas Avenue Beat is a spoof of the film noir genre with goofy characters, tons of wordplay, and non-stop raunchy humor. There's also 3 whole seasons out right now with more on the way. Just search for Atlas Avenue Beat wherever you listen to podcasts or visit us online at bloody.fm.